What's up, everybody? Today we're doing a 3D Souls-like tier list. So we'll only be taking a look at 3D Souls-like, none of the 2D ones, and we won't be taking a look at the Souls-like that are made by From Software. So no Elden Ring, no Dark Souls, only the competition. So let's get this started. First of all, we're gonna start with Code Vein. So this is very easy. This game was not very good. The gameplay was clunky, was really bad. The story was okay. Story was all right, but the gameplay terrible. Now, I think that if it wasn't anime, it wouldn't have sold anything. People just wanted to buy it because it was anime, it had big tits, and that was mainly the only appeal for the people that actually liked it. The gameplay compared to other Souls like was absolutely terrible. So I think we can all agree that's a D tier. Now let's move on to Ashen. Ashen, on the other hand, did pretty good. Ashen was, I would say, a C. The art style was interesting. The gameplay was very basic, but it worked. It didn't feel clunky and weightless like Code Vein. So Ashen did work. There was a problem when it comes to enemy variety. It was very low. You're basically fighting the same enemies over and over, and it gets tiring very quickly. So I think we can all agree that Ashen is a C tier. It's not an abomination, but it's nothing special. Dolmen, on the other hand, is an abomination. Dolmen was straight garbage. It was simply a cash grab to capitalize off the Souls like genre. There was no effort in the game, there was no passion, and it showed. The game is completely pointless. It is clunky. The same enemies over and over. It's hard just for the sake of being hard. Honestly, there was no purpose in buying this game. I really regretted my purchase. I buy every single Souls like just because I really love the genre, but this one was awful. Very bad purchase. I definitely regretted it. Now, if we go to Hellpoint, Hellpoint is a very solid Souls like. Even though it's made by an indie team, it's a very solid Souls like. The enemy designs were very good. There was a good amount of variety. There was an extreme variety when it comes to the builds that you could do. There were several weapons. There were items that could do magic, and there were guns. Honestly, really enjoyed my time with the game. The bosses, even though there weren't many, they were extremely well designed and well thought of. The DLC was a little bit iffy just because the last boss placement was completely stupid. It was a run even worse than the Blue Smelter Demon from Dark Souls 2. A very bad placement for a boss. But besides that, I think Hellpoint is a solid game. Now, Darksiders 3. Some people might not even consider it a Souls like because it's a Darksiders game. But Darksiders 3 definitely tried to capitalize off the popularity of Souls likes. And that's why they implemented a lot of Souls like mechanics. So there was you go get your souls, it was very tight combat with the dodges and so on. So I think it did a decent job. I wouldn't go in the B tier. I would put it in the C because I personally love Darksiders game, but it was not as good as the first two. Because it tried to do a Souls like, it kind of lost the essence of what a Darksider game is, and there was not much customization available. Even though, yeah, you could switch her whips into different weapons. Besides that, there weren't any items, so it was okay. I'll say it was okay. I think I played it. I beat it once, and then I played it another time, and then kind of lost interest. The DLCs were pretty good. I played the DLCs; they were good. Now let's talk about Neo. Neo, obviously, everybody loved it. The first one, I wouldn't call it an A. I would put it in front of Hellpoint definitely, but I would still call it a B. It was a very solid attempt at a Souls like. It delivered, the combat was fluid, enemy variety was decent, And story was pretty interesting, took place in Japan, and was supposed to talk about some real events. I really enjoyed it at first, didn't enjoy it so much halfway through, but it was still a very, very good Souls like. And what's really good about it is that it paved the way for Neo 2, which vastly improved on the first one. Neo 2 is one of my favorite Souls like that are not made by From Software. Very, very good game. Basically, they took everything they had in Neo 1 and they improved on it. They added these parries that were used, the Amina gauge, and it was really good. You could transform into demons temporarily when you're doing these abilities. Very, very solid game. That's why I'm putting it right up there at an A. Solid game. The DLCs were very good. There were three and they were very, very big. Neo 2, if you play the whole game, do all the missions, it'll take you at least 100 hours. I mean, it depends on what rate you played, how much you die, but it's a very good game. And also, the when you beat the game, the New Game Plus had different mechanics. It was really, really good. New Game Plus is actually where it became very, very hard. Anyways, let's carry on. Lords of the Fallen. Now, Lords of the Fallen was the first three AAA Souls like, and it was an attempt. It was the first of its kind. I would put it in the D. The story was the story was good, but the gameplay, not so much. It was clunky, it was slow, it didn't feel as crisp as Dark Souls 1 and 2 at the time. But it was a good attempt and it paved the way for future games. What was not so good also about Lords of the Fallen, there wasn't that much customization, although they implemented some pretty interesting mechanics, how you go and you get your souls, but you have a certain amount of time. So Lords of the Fallen was a D, but hopefully the second one that's coming up soon is going to be good. From what I've seen, it looks insane. I believe it's in Unreal Engine 5, and I think it will really, really do what the first one tried to do. Now, Mortal Shell, hold on, Mortal Shell, we can all agree is solid. Mortal Shell, I would put it at an A, because Mortal Shell is like Dark Souls Light, very condensed for people that want to start playing a Souls like but don't have time to invest in a long story or a long gameplay and hours. It's a very short game. It is condensed and it's good. There is only 4 weapons, and I do believe they added one more with the DLC, but they feel tight. The hardened mechanic is solid. It was actually very well thought of. Whoever thought about that is a genius, and it made for really interesting fights. So Mortal Shell, solid A. Remnant from the Ashes. Now, this is the first Souls like that took the Souls mechanic and adapted it to just mainly gun combat, which is genius. I love Remnant from the Ashes. The name is stupid, but the game is great. I would put it up here with an A. The fact that it was generated randomly also added a lot of replayability to the game. Is very, very solid. And the fact that there is a sequel coming up just in the next couple months, that hopefully they do like Neo 1 did with Neo 2, just completely improve on what's already there, and we are going to have a solid game. So Remnant, definitely recommend. That's an A. Now, what do we have here? Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, I would put it maybe just before Neo 2, because Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, although some people might not call it so much of a Souls like, it had a lot of other elements from Metroid to Zelda, and the combat at its core was very Souls like. It was tight, precise, focused on parries and dodges at the last second. The abilities were great. And as I'm recording this, the sequel is about to drop, so I'm sure that's going to be even better, possibly an S tier, who knows. But yeah, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order was fantastic. Love the game. The story was awesome. The bosses, everything was good. Now, if we move on to, we only have 5 left. Steel Rising. Steel Rising, meh. Eh. It's, I don't know if it's a D or a C. I would probably put it in C. It's not as bad as Cold Vein and Lords of the Fallen, but it's here. Let me put Darksiders here. Steel Rising, not fan of it. I played it right when it came out. I played it. I even made videos on it. When I was playing it, I was enjoying it. There were some interesting mechanics. In fact, you could jump around and had the hook shot and all these ways to traverse the world. The combat was pretty decent. The boss fights were lacking. Some of them towards the end were way too easy. The last boss I beat on my first try, and that should never be the climax to a game. Never. You shouldn't be able to beat the last boss on the first try. So, Steel Rising, I haven't played the DLC yet, but I don't think I will. It's just a forgettable game, unfortunately. Now, let's talk into the Surge series. The Surge was very good. The Surge one, I would put it at a B tier, behind Hellpoint, of course. It was very good with the cutting the arms mechanic. It was very interesting. They brought something new where you have to chop off the limbs to acquire a certain piece of equipment. I thought personally it was fantastic. And I beat it. It was great. I was looking forward to the second one, and the second one did even better. I do believe the Surge 2 is still a B tier, but it's not, it would be like a B plus. I would put it even, I preferred the Surge 2 to Neo. I did. So I would put the Surge 2 as the strongest B tier. They really improved on the first game. They did very good job with it, and I can't wait for what else they have that's cooking, which I believe is Atlas Fallen. That's going to be awesome. But yeah, the Surge 2 had a really interesting story. The DLC was pretty good with that boat. Honestly, a solid game altogether. Now, let's get into Timesia. Honestly, I personally love Timesia. I'm putting it at an A tier before Mortal Shell. I loved it very much. It's very short. It's like Mortal Shell. It's super condensed. If you're talking about Mortal Shell being Dark Souls light, Timesia is like Sekiro light. It's really good. The combat is very fluid with very timed parries. Awesome game. It's extremely short. I would say it's probably even shorter than Mortal Shell, but it's solid and it's not too expensive, so the time you actually spend on it is very, it's worth it. So that's what I would have to say about Timesia. I hope that they make a sequel and make it full length and full price. I'll be more than happy to pay for it. Now, last one on our list, we have Wolong. Now, Wolong is a little bit of a difficult one because when I started playing Wolong, I was so impressed. I was like, wow, this is the Sekiro-ish game we all wanted. I absolutely loved it. And then when you beat Lubu, everything else after that is way too easy. Because if you don't die while you're fighting a level in Wolong, you get so overpowered that when you get to the boss of the level, you're just running through him or her. It's just a complete walk in the park. And that's one of the mechanics that was an issue. And then if you get to New Game Plus, then it becomes ridiculously hard and everything kills you in 2 hits and the enemies are level 25. It's New Game Plus is like really hard. But Wolong, I loved it. I personally loved it. The aesthetic, the story, the combat, especially the combat, it was fantastic. So I would put it at an A, right next to Neo. And Wolong, also what's interesting is that it still has so much potential. It has several DLCs that will release in the next few months. So hopefully they'll be able to address some of the issues that were there, and hopefully they'll be able to make some more challenging combats that aren't so easy towards the end. Like the end game needs to be much harder without going into New Game Plus. Anyways, that's it for my list. Let me know what you guys think. I know every time someone does a Souls like tier list, it's very controversial. I'm sure the comments section will be lit up, and that's fantastic. I love to hear you guys' opinion. So please, if you enjoyed the video, like, subscribe. It really helps my channel, and I'll see you guys on the next one.